you're joining us today as we get to meet Farmer Anna and, of course, her adorable adopted calves, Maisie and Paisley. Today's chat wouldn't be possible without the generous support of Dairy Farmers of Washington and the Dairy Excellence Foundation. So thank you to both of those organizations for making today possible. First, this live chat is part of the Adopt a Cow program. And for anyone that's new to the Discover Dairy and Adopt a Cow program, it is a free online resource that covers Common Core standards in math, reading, and science, all while using dairy concepts to teach those lessons. The resources can be found at discoverdairy.com, and we'll go ahead and put it in the chat feature for you so you have easy access to those resources. We'd also love for you to join the fun next year for Adopt a Cow. So if you're interested in joining again, or you're brand new to this program and want to join the fun and just happen to stumble upon this live chat, we welcome you to do so. Registration is open, and you can go to discoverdairy.com/adopt, ADOPT. Simply fill out that form that's on that landing page, hit submit, and you're automatically enrolled. We'll begin the new program in the new school year of October of 2023. Next, as everyone continues to join us live today, you will see that that chat feature is enabled. Please feel free to go ahead and use that chat feature. You can comment, you can ask questions all throughout our chat with Farmer Anna. We do just ask that you keep the questions and comments related to the chat and school appropriate. And I know we are so excited to hear from you all. I know we've got some folks joining us from Oregon, some folks joining us from Washington. So please go ahead and let us know where you're joining from. I can see a couple of you have already said where you're joining from, which was really exciting. So thank you so much all for hopping on our call today. Farmer Anna is excited to hear from you, and I know I am too. So with that, I am pleased to introduce you to Farmer Anna. Hey, Farmer Anna, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing really well. Thank you, Brittany.
Awesome. Well, it looks like you are hanging out with two of our best friends, and we're really excited to see you and your calves. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about you and your family and your farm, and we'll go from there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yes, so I'm farmer, as Brittany just said. I farm here with my husband and our 3 children, and we are a 4th generation family farm. We've been milking cows for many, many years, and last fall we sold most of the milking cows. We still have a few, but we still have Maisie and Paisley here to visit with you today. And currently we're getting ready to plant a bunch of feed for cows. And so the spring weather that we're having today is really nice. And we look forward to continuing to be part of the agriculture industry.
Awesome. I love that. And I'm so glad we get to still hang out with Maisie and Paisley here today. They are really just hanging out and chowing down on something.
They are.
Do you mind going ahead and talking a little bit about reminding us which one is which, because they look so much alike,
They do.
and then just giving us an update on how big they are, what are they eating, that sort of thing.
Okay, so this one right here with the blue and black halter is Maisie. And then with the green and pink is Paisley. So if you guys want to look at them, you can, if you can't see their ear tag numbers and their faces look so similar, we can identify them by their different colored halters that they have around their heads here. They are currently eating what we call a TMR, or a total mixed ration. And some of you students might have looked into it and learned about it. Here they have their mix, which is put into a big mixing bowl on the back of a like your kitchen mixer, and it chops up the silage, which is fermented grass and fermented corn, has pieces of hay in it, and then it also has some grain and all their vitamins and minerals that they need to keep them healthy, happy, and strong and growing. And right now they're just over 4 feet tall at their shoulders, which is kind of where we tend to measure cows a lot, and they weigh just right around 600 pounds a piece. So they went from being those calves of 85 or 90 pounds at birth all the way up to now almost 600 pounds by the time they're 7 months old. So they do a lot of growing.
Yeah, I cannot believe they are that big already, 600 pounds. So it must be just from all the delicious food they've been eating and good living environments. And wow, I cannot believe they are this big, and they look so clean and shiny, and they look very, very happy. Have they kind of become good buds throughout the years since they've been hanging out together?
Yeah, they've been hanging out next door to each other when they were little, and they are good buds. They're also both 4-H project animals, and so one of them got a haircut a couple weeks ago Maisie did, because she went to a 4-H show. So you can see too that their heads, Paisley has long hair still. She
Yeah.
hasn't gotten her summer haircut, and Maisie had a summer haircut already.
Oh my gosh. Yes, you can see that. Her head is definitely,
Yeah.
she's definitely clean cut. So actually, do you mind talking about that a little bit? What does it mean to get ready for a show? What does a cow have to do, or you as a human have to do to get
Oh,
a cow animal ready for a show?
yeah, great question. So first of all, just like if you have a dog or a cat or any other animal, anybody who works with horses, or we have to train them. So normally they don't know how to just work on a halter or be led around. So when we train them, we teach them how to walk on the lead rope and stop and go when we want them to stop and go. And then the 4-H exhibitors or whoever's showing them has to teach them how to do certain things like hold their head up, walk slowly. Oops, Maisie just decided to stretch. So and then the 4-H members, they have to clean them. They clean them. They polish their toes. They give every haircut, or every hair gets a cut. They fluff up their tail, and they put oils on them so they're all nice and shiny. And then they take them out and they lead them nice and slowly so the judge can evaluate them for both how well they walk, how clean they are, as well as things like conformation. So how well they look like a cow that they're supposed to resemble, their breed. So the black and white ones being the Holsteins. So if you had a Jersey, a brown cow, or some other breed, they would judge in those categories. So those are kind of a really quick rundown on what it means to be a 4-H animal in the
Yeah.
dairy world.
Yeah. Interesting. So they get a little bit of extra treatment and extra pampering when they get to be chosen as a 4-H
They
animal and go to
do.
shows.
Yeah. Most of the cows on the dairies aren't going to be getting haircuts and baths on a regular basis, or even have their ears
Sure.
cleaned or their toenails polished.
Right.
They get to, and some cows like more than other cows, just like we have people who are more social than other people. We have cows that are more social than other cows. But that doesn't mean anybody's missing out. Some just get extra special attention.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Goodness.
I
So
think
I know
Paisley's falling asleep on us.
she does look like she's getting a little
She,
sleepy over there.
she does.
Oh
She's
my
gonna
goodness.
close her eyes.
So
So
that
cows
actually
don't
brings
really
up,
sleep on their
well,
feet
I was just about
like
to ask
horses
that.
do.
Do they fall asleep
Yeah.
standing up, or how do they sleep, and when do they sleep?
Well, they sleep throughout the whole day. So they sleep about 12 hours of each day. So they do spend a lot of time napping, but they do have to lie down, but they can relax. And so she's just hanging out here relaxing, saying my tummy is full, and now I'm on the camera and I don't really even know it. While Maisie is busy eating lunch still.
I was gonna say she's gonna chow down. So when you
Yeah.
feed them, do you feed them at certain times of the day, or or can they kind of graze on their food all day, or how does that work for a cow?
Yeah, no, great question. So we feed them at a certain time of day, but that's a full meal for the whole day.
Gotcha.
So they'll come up and they'll eat and they'll enjoy it throughout the next 24 hours. And then what they don't eat, which is very little because we don't want to waste their food either, but we don't want them to run out of food. So they don't have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner schedule. They eat when they're hungry. And then the whole amount that they're given is based on how many animals are in that group. And so they're in a group of about 50 animals. So we'll feed that group for 50 animals for their age so that we calculate just right, really close, so that we don't waste it by overfeeding and they're not going hungry by underfeeding.
Gotcha. Interesting. That's quite the science then, to make sure that they're getting exactly
There
what
is
they
a
need
there
when
is
they
a
need it.
Right, and there's a lot of science that goes on, all the STEM work that goes on. So if you are science students, or you don't even like science but you like animals, you are really STEM students.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Oh, we're so excited to see that they're doing so well. And I just wanted to let you know, we actually have some folks on with us from Oregon, Washington, and Alaska, which is exciting.
Sweet.
So just thought I'd let you know that we've got a bunch of classes joining us today, which is exciting. And we
That is
welcome you
exciting.
all to go ahead and drop some questions in the chat if you have any, or we'll gladly ask them to Farmer Anna for you and relay them to her. But in the meantime, Farmer Anna, so these two girls are about 8 months old right now. What's kind of the
Correct.
next steps for them once, will they go on a pasture? When do they become a milk cow? What's that experience like for a cow?
Sure. So here on our farm, and every farm's a little different, but here on our farm, they'll just kind of hang out with their buddies and learn all the new things that they're learning, like how to hang out with their friends, how to grow, how to eat, and they'll be like this with their peers for the next about 5 months. And then when they get to be about 13 months, then they are ready to have their own or to get pregnant. They're not going to have their baby until the baby grows inside their bodies for another 9 months. So right around the age of 2, they'll have their very first baby and they'll start being milk cows and needing to be milked regularly. But they just get to eat and grow kind of and learn about life, learn about the things cows do in a herd, and visit with us, visit with their friends. And then once they have their baby, that's when they start making milk and all that really good, yummy other dairy products that milk is turned into. And then so they won't live here. I have them here, right? Well, they will live here. They won't live in this pen. The pen they live in is with, like I said, another 50 animals. And they actually have stalls that they go and lie in. So much like you have a bed that you go and lie in, each one of these has a place where they can go lie down. They don't have to be bothered by their friends. Nobody can trample on them. Gosh, Maisie I don't know if I've missed her itch or what's going on here. But they just kind of hang out, and they will get to go outside when the weather's nice and the ground isn't all soggy. One of the things we face in Western Washington, and now, well, I'm going to interrupt myself. Maisie's now chewing on Paisley's ear, just like friends do, right?
Right.
But in Western Washington, we have a lot of rain, and we have to kind of wait for the benefit of the soil, because we also aren't just dairy farmers. We take care of the soil and the environment. So we don't want to turn these ladies out on the pasture when they're just going to turn it into mud. It's not very healthy for them, nor is it very healthy for the soils. So we'll wait until things dry up a little bit later in a few more weeks to another month or so. Then they get to go out and play in the field. But we do continue to feed them their TMR, because we want to make sure they get all the right things, all their vitamins and minerals and all the nutrients they need to be big, to grow big and strong and be ready to have that baby when they're about 2 months old, or 2 years old.
Okay. So that makes sense. So they become a milk cow after they have their first calf, and so you talked about that's about 2 years old, and that might seem early for some people, because when we think about us at 2 years old, gosh, we are still very much so a baby. But that's a very normal age for a cow, correct? Because they don't have a very long lifespan. What is the average lifespan of a cow?
Correct. Well, it really depends. And that's a question that is individual to each farm, but somewhere around 7 or 8 years is considered a average lifespan for a milking dairy cow. Some cows will live much, much older, and other ones don't live quite that long. But that 2 years, their body matures so much faster than ours. So of course, we're not having babies at 2 years of age, but they are all set and ready to do that.
Right. That makes sense. I think, and I believe we just put the fun fact in there. I believe it's about every 10 human years to 1 cow year. So they're probably about 20-ish when they first have
when they have their that seems baby. About right. A little bit. Awesome. We'll say 7 years for a dog and about 10 years for a cow.
Yeah. All right. We had some folks wondering from Miss Mayes's class. They were wondering if Maisie and Paisley are related at all, just because they look so much alike. Their names sound alike. They were just curious if they're related.
That's a great question. No, they are not related. Their moms aren't related, and their dads aren't even related. So isn't that funny how we can get similar markings on somebody or on animals that aren't even related? Imagine walking up to your neighbor and saying, "You look like me." And you go back and you do all your ancestry check, and there's nothing that you share in common. That's kind of them. They have very similar markings and similar birthdays, and born one right next to the other. And and in fact, for those of you students who are looking at them now, I've made sure when I've taken pictures that we've the halters are different colors so that I don't get confused as I send pictures to Brittany for you to view.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of times I was like, it's a good thing we had the different color halters because they look so much alike. That's funny that there's no relation, but that's interesting.
No
Well, thank you.
relation. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So they were wondering, so Mrs. Hines' class was wondering, will Maisie's mom or even Paisley's mom, do they ever recognize their calves whenever they join the milking herd, or is it pretty much just, I mean, like it's just a new cow to the herd? Is there any sort of maternal connection at all like that?
It's a great question. And I've had that question asked many times. And the best answer I can give is no, not really. If you didn't know your brother or sister, imagine that, or your cousin or your good friend, would you recognize them? So no, sometimes you see similar behaviors or personalities, but they don't tend to hang out and go, oh, you're my mom. We become, as the farmer, we become the kind of surrogate parent for them. So we're the ones who give all their food when they're younger and older. And so we are the ones that they recognize and associate with that care and the food. So
Sure.
mom is not really something that they run up to and greet, but they do certainly have the chance to interact with each other. And I think my opinion, so this is not any science behind this, but my opinion is when you get like animals having like personalities, sometimes they do similar things. And maybe they recognize the similar action, but I don't think they recognize each other as a parent or a sibling.
Sure. And that makes sense. I mean, yeah, they're raised with their friends. So they're going to be closer with their friends and their herd
Mm-hmm.
mates, I guess we could say.
The herd
And
mates, exactly.
yeah. And so that actually brings up an interesting question too. Have you ever noticed calves and heifers kind of piling off with someone that maybe they were born around at that same time? And if so, what does playing look like for a calf or a heifer?
Oh yeah, good question. So if as you look at these two, you can see that they have numbers in their ears, and so those are their herd numbers. And so we have 3036 is Maisie and 3037 is Paisley, and that just means they were the next ones born. They aren't assigned before they were born a number. Maisie was born first, and then Paisley. So they were raised together. And yes, to answer the question, yes, we do see that when cows are paired together or housed together or grow up together, that they do find that they have buddies. And sometimes that buddy system is very small, one-on-one, and other times it grows and becomes much larger and incorporates other individuals. But we'll see similar aged animals or that were raised together eating or sleeping next to each other. And playing boy, you can give cows toys, but they also find toys to play with that grow their brain. And so they will do behaviors in the barns that are what we would call playing. Sometimes it's just grooming each other. Sometimes they'll groom each other. I've seen cows like we saw here chew on each other's ears, or sometimes they'll chew on parts of their hair, and some of that's grooming, and some of it I think is just being an irritating friend.
That's funny. And they definitely, I think I don't know if anyone's ever seen videos. Sometimes when you freshly clean a pen or freshly put bedding down, they'll get kind of kick their heels up and kind of run around and maybe play in the fresh bedding too. I think sometimes calves like
Right.
to do
Yeah.
that too.
We say they get clean sheets 3 times a week here. And boy, it's pretty fun to see them run in and dig their head into it,
Right.
and it can be very frustrating as a farmer too. And you say, oh, I just gave you clean sheets and now you're messing them up. But that is kind of their fun behavior too. They do get excited if they get out in the field and run around and kick up their heels. And they're able to do that whether they're in the field or housed indoors. They find ways to, I guess, what we would call play.
Gotcha. Interesting. So we talked a little bit about some of the
Oh, there's a
features
good
or
mouthful.
that is a good mouthful. We talked about some features or some actions that cows do when they're happy and kind of hanging out. What do you as a farmer look for maybe if they're not feeling well, and what are things that you can do to help them feel better?
Sure, good questions too. Um, so their personality changes. So what you as the viewer don't see is how these cows maybe their demeanor or their behavior change. So if they don't feel good, they don't necessarily want to get up in the morning or in the afternoon. Maybe they're not eating their food. They're not doing things like trying to eat the wheelbarrow. They'll lie in the corner by themselves. They won't interact with their peers. A lot of farms also, and we have them on the older animals, have something much like a activity tracker, or for those of you who are familiar with Fitbits. And so those will help the farmers keep an eye on the cows when maybe we don't know things are going wrong. Maybe they have a little upset tummy and they haven't shown us the signs yet physically, but we can look at that monitor and say, oh, your tummy hurts, or we need to figure out what's going on. And so those are some tools that we have to utilize as farmers. But really the most important thing is, just like parents know when their children aren't feeling well, we have to keep an eye all the time on these individuals and learn their personal behaviors and what a cow is, in order to make sure that when they're not healthy, we catch those signs.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why you do what you do. Is you spend every day, all the time, with your cows to make sure that they're happy and healthy, and so you can recognize when they're not feeling well, and then of course handle it as needed to make sure that they can continue being a healthy animal.
Right.
So,
and sometimes that requires some medical intervention with the advice of a veterinarian, just like you're going to the doctor. And other times it just requires the farmer to say, oh, you need a little space, you need a little time, we need to change your diet, maybe, things like that. So sometimes we do have to call on those professionals that assist us with things like the medical care. And other times we don't have to use medical or antibiotics or antimicrobials. We just give them either the space they need or some time to heal and recover.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That was great. It's good to know that we're always keeping an eye on them and making sure we're keeping them happy and healthy. We had a good question come in. They were wondering where the cows have their babies. Is there like a special pen, or do they have them out in the field, or what's that like for the cow?
Yeah, I'm going to turn because I think you're getting a little wind feedback. So it depends on the farm. Most farmers are going to actually try to give them a place that is just for them to calve. Now, that might mean that we have 5 or 6 cows that are ready to have babies, or more than that, all in the same place, kind of like you would go to the hospital maybe to have a baby at the hospital. Sometimes they have, if you have cows out in the field, they'll go out in the field. But we try to give them a somewhat secluded place so that they can go peacefully have a baby and not have other animals poking them, irritating them, saying, hey, what's going on? Because that whole process of birthing is kind of something that needs to happen without a lot of stress. And so wherever we do have our cows have babies, we want it to be a stress-free as possible environment. So So it just depends on the farm, whether they are in individual pens out in the field or in a group of other moms that are soon to be moms.
Okay, very cool. Thank you. We were wondering, can you just refresh us or remind us how many cows you have on the farm now?
So because we sold the milk cows about 6 months ago, we're actually about half as big as we were, and we have about 250 animals as opposed to the about 500 that we had before.
Gotcha. So, I mean, that's still a lot of animals, Farmer Anna, that you guys have to take care of.
It still is a lot of animals. Yeah, and even if you only had one, you'd need to take care of them. So so we do the best we can by these animals and take care of them the best way we know how.
Oh, I love that. This was a good question that came in from some of the students from Mrs. Mays' class. They were wondering if cows can ever have twins or maybe even triplets.
Yeah, and they can. So twins happen about 10% of the time. So for every 10 babies or cows that have babies, you on average get about 1 set of twins. Triplets is pretty uncommon. In my experience, we've had 2 sets of triplets. And they can actually have more than that, but it's really, really rare. And to have more than 1 baby for a cow is not ideal. They're really built to have 1 baby per cow. 2 is about the most, and those are some special individuals that can have 3 or more. But it is kind of exciting when it happens, for sure.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you said it's normal and you would prefer it to be one calf at a time. And that's about one calf a year. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So it takes about 9 months to grow that baby inside the mommy's tummy. And so um, after she has her first baby, she she won't get pregnant or be ready to have another baby for a couple months. So that is about one baby a year, and they can't have a baby unless their body is ready to have a baby or get pregnant to have a baby. So it just takes some time, and then by the time you end up growing that baby for 9 months, it ends up being about 12 to 13 months between babies is what we like to see on these gals.
Very cool. Oh, good. Very good. And then one final question before we start to wrap up from a student. They were wondering, and maybe you can try and simplify this because it can be a kind of complex question. They were just curious how a cow can digest the food because the food they're eating, which you talked a little bit about what's in the food, is foods that we as humans can't really eat. So how and why can they digest that food? Using, and I know it's probably using those four compartments in their stomach, but was just curious if you had any
Sure.
way of explaining that a
No,
little bit.
good question. So their stomach is much different than ours, and so when they eat these big pieces of like fibrous plant material, their stomach is designed to eat those. And so they have lots of really good bacteria in their stomach that breaks down those pieces of grass. And you'll also see cows if you ever watch them, and deer and sheep and other what we call ruminants. Actually, they eat their food. It goes into their first part of their stomach, and then they burp it back up and they chew it, kind of like chewing or like bubble gum. They don't blow bubbles, of course. You won't see big pink bubbles coming out their mouths, but they chew that. And so that goes into their stomach. That bacteria starts to break it down and digest their food so that they can get what they need out of the grass and those plant materials. So they do not eat any sort of meat or anything. They're and their stomach are designed for that. And that's why they can eat the food that we can't eat, or we can eat,
Gotcha.
but we don't get as much useful nutrients out of it as they do.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, thank you.
I hope
That's
that
a,
answers that question.
yeah, I think it did. I think they're just very unique animals that they can eat so many different things than we can and be such great upcyclers and eating waste foods
Yeah, and they
that
also
we
help. I
can't
mean, some
eat.
of the things that we feed them, yeah, and some of the things that we feed them are things that are byproducts of our just us living. So they
Mhm.
can do things like bakery waste, things that come out of making cakes and cookies and bread. They do things like mash from making beer.
Hmm.
So some of these things that would otherwise end up in landfills and other places, they get to consume, and then we don't waste all of that. Even down to Skittles. There was some Skittles that were fed to cows a few years ago that kind of made the news,
Ah!
and that was kind of fun. And
Ah,
In Hershey, Pennsylvania, they'll feed them the waste from making Hershey's chocolate bars.
mhm.
So there are some pretty cool things that cows can do as recyclers that are great to keep things out of the landfills that they eat.
That's really cool. And yes, you are right. I'm actually only 15 minutes from Hershey. And so all of the farms around here do a bunch of them do end up
Oh,
getting some of the byproducts from Hershey. So I think it's a pretty cool story. We always love being able to say that our cows eat chocolate
yeah.
and
So
like
in
chocolate here.
Washington, we feed a lot of yeah. In Washington, we feed a lot of apple pumice and potatoes.
Yeah,
Those are things that are grown quite a lot in Washington, Oregon areas. So for any
that's
of
cool.
you who might see truckloads of apples or enjoy apple juice, you're going to see that a lot of those byproducts from those industries go back to the cows.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I love that. Very cool. Well, Farmer Anna, this has been a lot of fun today. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions. I know we've already been getting some folks saying thank you so much. They've loved following Maisie. They felt like she was part of her class and the first graders loved her. Just all kinds of good things coming from classes. So thank you so much for letting us adopt these adorable calves from you and your farm and being part of this program. And we really, really appreciated it. And I did want to ask you one final question. If you can still hear me, I think your video might have I think we just lost her. I'm not sure where she went, but that's okay. We are wrapping up anyway. So thank you so much all for joining us today for our live chat. We really appreciated it. I think they might have been having some network issues there, but thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed their year following Maisie and Paisley. And we really hope you join the Adopt a Cow Fund again next year. So again, don't forget, you can sign up at discoverdairy.com/adopt, and you can just get that form filled in, and then we'll start the program again October 2023.